Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Parsons, and my partner of 20 years and I have a 3-year-old son through traditional surrogacy, which we did independently. So I come with a slightly different perspective, both in terms of how we went about our family making, as well as the process that we took to even start. Yet at the same time, so much of what has been said in terms of the connection and the building the relationship and just all of that, it rings incredibly true with us. We chose to work independently for a number of reasons. First of all, I'm a little obsessive compulsive when it comes to details, and I have control issues. And so those things come together to, I think, make doing this independently an ideal choice for me and my partner. It's not an ideal choice for everybody. And we didn't want to pay an agency to do some of the aspects of the coordination that I was willing to spend the time and effort and energy to do myself. And so that was a major part of the decision making. We also wanted the flexibility with being able to put together for us all of the pieces that were going to be ideal for us. That is, we wanted to be able to pick the best surrogate for us. We wanted to be able to pick the best attorney for us, the best physicians for us, the best escrow company for us. We wanted to be able to kind of package our dream team together without necessarily utilizing the team that an agency had put together. We still had all of the pieces in play. I can't emphasize enough, particularly if you're doing this independently, that you cannot cut corners. It's not about skipping steps. It's not about eliminating parts of the process. It's about spending the time and energy and effort to do it yourself, but still make sure that all of those pieces are in place. I'm a psychologist. I'm the chair of psychology at Hunter College, so I felt that I was capable of doing my own psychological screening of potential surrogates, as well as taking care of my partners and I's sort of support needs through tapping into friendship networks who had also gone through surrogacy. And the other reason that we went independent, quite honestly, was because we wanted to do traditional surrogacy, and we knew that from the very beginning. And a lot of agencies don't work with traditional surrogates any longer. And so that would have limited even some of our choices in agency selection if we had chosen to utilize an agency. So then, why did we choose traditional surrogacy? Is a question we get a lot. We really wanted to have a personal connection and a very open connection with the woman who was going to be our child's biological mother. And we use the term mother, a lot of people don't. Jessica is our son's mother. She is not his parent. She has no legal rights, but she is and always will be an important part of our son's life and our lives. And we really wanted that aspect going into this. We did not want an anonymous egg donor. We did not ever want our child to feel that sense of mystery that John talked about. Our son will always know where he came from. We also chose traditional surrogacy because we didn't want to incur the additional costs of IVF. You don't have to do IVF with traditional surrogacy. We also wanted to minimize the chance of multiples. I know some people are like, oh, we really want twins. The idea of twins terrified us, still terrifies us. So we were really happy with the idea that although twins could happen with traditional, much less likely to happen with that. I spent almost a year trying to educate myself about surrogacy through reading on websites. There's a number of surrogacy information sites and support message boards that are out there where surrogates, egg donors, intended parents, they have separate sections for gay and lesbian families who are interested in surrogacy, that you can sort of meet other people, talk, you can post questions, get answers, get support. And I really spent a lot of time on those boards kind of learning about opportunities, meeting people who had done surrogacy, meeting people who had done traditional surrogacy. I think one of the reasons that we were so comfortable with traditional surrogacy is the majority of people we talked to, that's how they had done it. And so that felt familiar and comfortable to us. And we started to respond to advertisements of women who would post ads on some of these message boards. We would email back and forth. Kim talked about trust, communication, and flexibility being the 3 critical psychological things. My fourth one that I would add is humor. The stuff you deal with, if you can't laugh about it, it's going to be a really challenging 9 months. We started then moving from sort of email contact with a number of surrogates to phone contact. We then met 2 surrogates in person. The first one we met and knew instantly that although I'm sure she would be a great surrogate for somebody, she wasn't going to be a great surrogate for us. The second surrogate that we met in person, we knew instantly that this was the woman who was going to carry our child. Certainly, the legal risks of traditional versus gestational surrogacy, a lot can be said about that. We wanted to minimize those risks by going with a traditional surrogate who had been through the process of giving up her biological child to a couple previously. We were able to again, put all the pieces into place in terms of having Jessica medically screened. We all had the necessary background checks and STD testing and all of those aspects of it that an agency would handle, we just did on our own. We dealt with the negotiation of all of the fees, how we were going to deal with reimbursements. Again, we were really comfortable in talking about this with Jessica because she had been a surrogate already, and so she had some experience in the process. We dealt with all of the other critical things like, you know, under what situations would we want to terminate, how are we going to handle breastfeeding, and, you know, was she going to pump breast milk, which she did for us, what would happen in the case of an emergency C-section. I mean, we really worked out all of the sort of worst case scenarios and that in order to establish that communication and trust from the very beginning. We then turned to a wonderful set of attorneys, attorneys for us, separate attorneys for Jessica, obviously, because that is critically important. We went with attorneys who had done traditional surrogacy before. We took a total of 3 trips to California for home inseminations to get her pregnant. The third time is what produced our son. Through that process, we, obviously met her kids, developed a relationship. A lot of folks get nervous about the idea of the costs that are involved. And certainly there are a number of ways that you can do it. Somebody on the panel already talked about shared egg donation cycles. There are those kinds of possibilities. You can find a gestational carrier if you're going to go gestational, or a traditional carrier if you're going to go that way. Through friends, through family members, that may be a way of reducing the cost. I don't like to necessarily talk about, our child who is the joy of our life in dollar figures, but I do share with people that the entire process cost us about $40,000, which is significantly less than other ways of doing it. Because we did this in California, we were able to get a pre-birth order with both of our names on the birth certificate. That was processed while Jessica was still pregnant. We had no issues with the hospital. Jessica breastfed in the hospital. We were completely comfortable with that. People were like, oh my God, you can't let your surrogate breastfeed, especially when it's her biological child. She'll develop a connection. She's had him in her for 9 months. I think she already has a connection. It's a different type of connection, obviously. We felt perfectly comfortable with her doing that, and we feel that our son benefited from the critical breast milk at the time of birth. And she then proceeded to pump breast milk and Federal Express it to us for about 4 months after Henry was born. So he was on primarily breast milk for the first several months of life, which was great. We were also able to utilize Jessica's insurance. Her insurance did not have a surrogacy exclusion. The attorneys verified that through going over her insurance documentation. So that was another huge cost savings. The entire medical procedures for our son cost $500, which was the hospital copay for the pregnancy. So that was a huge cost savings. Again, it's not necessarily common that all of the pieces will fall into place the way they did for us to enable this to happen as sort of perfectly and ideally as it did, but it certainly can happen, and so there are those kinds of options, and I would be certainly happy to talk with anybody afterwards if you have questions or looking for more information on that. Thanks very much.